I just wanted to go over a couple of things for our writing assignment this week. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to continue working on Elijah and the widow in lesson 3. So we read this lesson last week, and if you need a refresher for it, it's on page 20, and you can reread the Elijah and the widow. And also, if this version is too difficult to read because it's out of the King James or New King James Version, feel free to read this out of NIV or ESV or whatever Bible your family is most comfortable with using, and that might make it a little bit easier. So hopefully you've gotten your outline done this week. If you don't have your outline done and you need a little bit of extra help with it, let me know. And if your mom doesn't have a teacher's guide, then we can make sure that your outline has gotten complete. So this week we are going to be working on paraphrase 1. And this is actually the only paraphrase we're going to do this week. I know it has for you on page 25, on page 24, to do a separate paraphrase, but we're going to concentrate just on one paraphrase this week and really work hard on it. So what we're going to be adding this week, these are both things that you have done before. We're going to be adding the choreographia. So we're going to be looking at describing a particular group of people. So in this narrative, what groups of people could we be describing? So as you're looking through this, what groups of people could you do? So you might talk about the widow as the first one that pops up. You could talk about the widow, maybe her conditions, or what she was like, especially during that time, because they really were helpless. They were not able to own property, to be able to work outside the home. They were really dependent on the generosity of others and being taken care of by the religious leaders of the day. So we could talk about how the poor widow who depended on the generosity of others would be the one that actually sustained Elijah. So that would be pretty interesting. Or you could talk about Elijah. You could talk about how he was totally dependent on the widow to provide for him, because that's what the Lord had told him. Let's see if there's any other people groups here. And I don't think there are. So I'm going to peek and look at the teacher's guide and see what they use for, yes, they talk about the widows there. And actually, if you want to look in your mom's teacher guide, it would be on page 22. And I'm just going to read to you what they say about the widow. And of course, the widow is from Sidon. This says, I'll read you the full sentence. When I reached the town gate, a Sidonian widow was there gathering sticks in her traditional garb. She wore a knee-length black and tied loosely at the waist with a red cord. I left out a word, and that would be really important. Let me go back and read that again. A Sidonian widow was there gathering sticks in her traditional garb, which was knee-length black and tied loosely at the waist with a red cord. And so that's just describing her specifically and what she would have looked like and been dressed like. So that's the choreographia, just describing that people group. And of course, we're talking about the widow or Elijah. We don't have anybody else. And then we have chronographia. Do you remember what chronographia is? If you said a vivid description of a specific time, you're exactly right. You might have not even been able to peek over my shoulder. So it's a vivid description of a specific time. So let's look in here and let's see if we can figure out where are specific times that you may be able to add in. Because it doesn't really give us like at high noon or at 6 p.m. So let's look. And the word of the Lord, I'm reading from page 20 at the very top, the very first paragraph under Elijah and the widow. And the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, Arise, get thee to Zarephath, which belongeth to Zidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow woman there to sustain thee. So we don't have a specific time period, but you can add one. So, when could the word of the Lord have come to him? So, you might be creative and say, and the word of the Lord came unto Elijah first thing in the morning before the sun peeked over the horizon. Or the word of the Lord came to him late in the evening after the first stars had come out. So you can decide your time period. You'll be able to have a little bit of creative license here in adding what time period you think. So let's see if there's any other places. Beginning of second paragraph. So he arose. When did he arise? And went to Zarephath. So he arose early in the morning. He slept late and got up midday. He arose late in the afternoon after the heat of the day. You have lots of choices there. And went to Zarephath. And when he came to the gate of the city, behold, the widow woman was there gathering of sticks. And he called her, Fetch me, I pray thee, a little water in a vessel that I may drink. As she was going to fetch it, he called to her and said, Bring me, I pray thee, a morsel of bread in thine hand. Again, this would be a very good time to put in a specific time period. So, what time of day is it now? You might have mentioned a time of day earlier and then might be following it up with a time that occurred later. So you might have him arising early in the morning, but when he goes to Zarephath, and then at the very end, bring me, I pray thee. Try to say that 3 times fast. Bring me, I pray thee, a morsel of bread in thine hand. And he said this as the late afternoon sun was high in the sky. So you can have one vivid description of time, or you can have more than one vivid description of time. So I want to give you some opportunities there to be creative. Now, you guys are getting really good at this. I want you to also, and this is in the directions, so if you'll look on page 22, the very first thing it says under paraphrase 1. Let's read that together. Page 22, right underneath paraphrase 1. Ready? Change the viewpoint of the narrative and use an example of each of these figures of description. So we already talked about those, the choreographia and chronographia. And now we're going to change the viewpoint. So when we change the viewpoint, there's not that many that we can take. You can be Elijah or you can be the widow. If you think of another one that you can be, I would love to hear it. I think that would be interesting if you can find another viewpoint that you can be. So remember, if you're Elijah, you're going to take out all the Elijah, he, him, and replace it with I and me. You're going to take out, if you're the widow, all the she and her and Sidonian widow, and you're going to replace it with I. So whichever viewpoint you take, you're going to replace it. So those are the things you have to do. Now, since this week is kind of different, and we're starting class in a way we don't usually start class on Mondays, I want you to work on this one paraphrase. So you're going to be writing it based on your outline. I want to really challenge you. Don't read over the narrative and just start writing it. If you haven't done the outline first, that's the first job of business for the week, is that you get your outline done. So what's the first thing you've got to do? Yes, get your outline done. After you get your outline done, Then you start on paraphrase number 1. So what you're going to do after you finish with that part, the required part, now we're going to add some fun things just because we can. Just because we have learned about some of these things, and this is going to be just a really fun time. So we're going to be adding some fun to our writing. The first thing we're going to do is choose. Actually, I'm going to start with number 2 first. Can I do that? Make sure your verbs are strong. That means instead of saying that he walked, maybe he trudged. Instead, he was tired. He walked a long way. Maybe instead of sitting, somebody plops down. So we're going to be very specific in our verb choice. One of my favorite friends online is thesaurus.com. Just thesaurus.com. If you have a thesaurus at home and you love finding words, that's wonderful. If you're someone that enjoys using the computer and is comfortable with that, and your mom is good with that, then type in thesaurus.com and type in the verb you were using, whether it was walk or sat or spoke or said, which we don't use anymore because that's too weak. Type that into the thesaurus.com and it will come up with so many words. Just remember, if you're using something like thesaurus.com, that if you're using a word, you want to make sure that it is the correct part of speech. So for the word, some words can be used as adjectives. Some words can be used as nouns. Some words can be used as verbs. So just make sure, just double check with your mom and make sure that you've got it in the correct category. Otherwise, your words aren't going to make much sense. So let's look at this. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to make sure we have strong verbs here. We're not going to be using weak words because we are strong writers. Then take 2 of those strong verbs, add an adverb to it. How did he trudge? Did he trudge slowly through the streets? How did he sit? He heavily plopped himself down after such a long journey. So I've always called these LY words because LY words are great words to use to dress up your verbs. So you can call them what you want. You can call them adverbs, LY words, whatever you want to call them. But we're going to find 2 strong verbs, and we're going to dress it up with putting an adverb either before or after it. You can say he quickly plopped down or he plopped quickly down. Either one. So we're going to make sure we're using strong verbs. We're going to make sure that we are going to add 2 adverbs with 2 verbs to 2 verbs. We're going to add 2 adverbs to 2 verbs. Now, I want you to really try in your writing to be using quality adjectives. Now, what are quality adjectives? Some of you may know and some of you may not. Quality adjectives are adjectives that really do a very good job of describing the noun. So, there are some adjectives that I would say aren't exactly quality. And let's look at those. You know what? We're going to just scooch on up here so you can see these up close. There we go. All right. Now, I used to have a little cheer I made for these, so I'm just going to sing my cheer to you. These are the adjectives we do not use. Notice over here, I should have put it closer. Sorry about that. Trying not to make you guys nauseous. These are banned adjectives, and we don't use those. And here are the banned adjectives. Are you ready? Good, bad, nice, mean, and the word interesting. Pretty, ugly, big, a lot, say, said, get, got. See, saw, and look. All right, let's do that one more time. good, bad, nice, mean, and the word interesting, pretty, ugly, big, a lot, say, said, get, got, see, saw, and look. These are not strong adjectives or verbs. So if you notice all the way through good, bad, nice, mean, and the word interesting, pretty, ugly, big, a lot, those are our band adjectives. Now we have some band verbs that follow right after that. We have say and said, get and got, see, saw, and look. Those are our band verbs because people don't usually just say something. They might whisper it. They might exclaim it. They might question. They might exhort. But very rarely do people just say something. That would be very dull. If people just talk like this all the time, that would be dull, dull, dull. So we want to make sure that we are using words that describe what is happening as clearly as we can. So what I used to tell some older students that I taught when my kids were in the upper grades, like in high school, I would tell them that they are painters of pictures with their words. And their words, the better words that they chose, the clearer the picture would be that they were painting. So when you're talking about, that's a nice flower, but you're talking about a yellow daffodil that just bloomed, wouldn't it be a better picture if you said, a little piece of sunshine spread wide its arms on its green stem. It was called a daffodil. So it's a little bit better than saying the nice yellow flower bloomed. I have outside my window, I have a flowering cherry tree. It's not weeping because they hang their branches down and my branches go out straight. So I have outside my window a flowering cherry tree, and it is beautiful. It is covered with pink blossoms. So if I were going to be an average writer, I might just say, there was a tree by the road with pink blossoms. That's not really exciting, and it also doesn't tell you how delicate it is. Actually, that was one of the words I was going to use. The delicate buds burst forth with fragile pink blossoms and made the tree look like it was covered with lace. So that paints a little bit better of a picture, and I'll show you the tree. I'll actually have to show you outside. Oh, will that even show up? We'll see. Can you see it right through there? Can you see how delicate it is? Those little pink blossoms. I'm having a hard time getting a good angle on it, but can you see that at all? It's just very delicate, and it's the softest pink. So it's much more than a tree that just blooms pink flowers. So that's what you're working on this week, is coming up with paraphrase number 1 that you're going to write down, change your point of view, include your choreographia, chronographia, and let's add these dress-ups this week for a really fun paper. And Michael Bowers, he's going to add dress-ups. He's going to add his dress-ups too, because you know what? When he writes sermons each week, he has to add lots of dress-ups to make it really exciting to listen to. All right, I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.